All right. Let's see what else you guys talking about. Which link do you want, JD? How to draw or the first one? Here, I'll post them both. There you go. Yeah, so as far as kind of a little bit of what I was talking about when you start to learn perspective, let's just for example here, trying to think of what to use as an example. So let's do the 2 point. Actually, let's put the other one way out here so that we don't get a real distorted perspective. There's also something called the cone of vision, which is basically the circle, like it's within a certain area. I can't remember how to get that again, but I'd have to look that up. But basically your cone of vision is your eyesight, because if you notice that everything gets really distorted as you drop down further. And basically what that is you as a human have a cone of vision, and within that vision is basically how you see stuff. And if you get outside of the cone of vision and stuff gets really, really distorted. So that's why, like, if you draw a cube down here, it's like super tweaked and distorted and doesn't look right. Like you would never visually see this happen, like through your own eyes. The only way you would actually see something like this happen is like a fisheye lens or something might cause crazy distortion like that. Hey, thanks for the follow. I missed who that was, but just say hi in chat. Might have the most creative name on Twitch. Right on. So you want to keep most of your stuff within this range right here. Usually when you draw out this perspective grid, you can kind of figure out where stuff looks not normal, you know? So, okay, within this cube here, let's say we have a box here, okay? And if you get good at drawing this stuff, like say you start with laying out grids like this for yourself. And just a real quick exercise, I know I've talked about this in the past, to get good lines like this. I mean, I'm not saying that my lines are perfect, but if you want to get better at drawing lines, actually, I'm going to bring this over. I'm going to put the box there. If you want to get better at drawing controlled lines, just do sketching exercises, like drawing points like this, and making your brain stop at the next one and trying to keep a straight line. There's a bunch of exercises you can do to get better at that, but that's kind of how I do, and I can get these good lines. And then the other big key is drawing with your elbow. Don't ever draw with your wrist like this, because that's probably like some of the most common mistakes that beginner drawers do, is they draw with their wrists like this and they get these real scratchy lines. But if you draw with your elbow or your shoulder, even like if you're using a bigger piece of paper, I always put my pinky down on the paper, and then I just get a nice controlled straight line that way. So anyways, back to the perspective thing. So let's say I got this box here, right? You get it set up in your grid, and just practice doing that. Draw boxes within the grid, and also just keep in mind that the focal, oh my gosh, it just left my head on what it was. The cone of vision within that area, so that you're drawing normal stuff. Don't draw way down here, because this stuff is super distorted and it looks weird. Like if I drew a car out of this shape it looks really bad. It looks tweaked, distorted, and just doesn't look right to the person looking at it. So if you practice this enough, you get pretty good at drawing this stuff. There's a whole other lesson in getting your ellipses right too. I would probably go through that at a later point. But just drawing some of this stuff over and over again, and you can do. I know that I'm getting kind of advanced with the cylinders and stuff, but so like up here you have this grid coming up here, so I need to draw my cylinder within that, or my ellipse. Sorry. Actually, I've hit on ellipses too, drawing them within perspective. So then there's even more that you can do. Like if you have a light source, you can figure out all your shadows. You can plot all that stuff out. It's pretty crazy what you can figure out. Like I said, I probably should talk about that stuff later because that's starting to get really advanced. So then once you get used to drawing some of these shapes in perspective, your brain will start to figure out that, like, now I can take that box and I can draw that thing in perspective now without even having my vanishing points. Then once you have this brick, then you keep it basic for yourself so that you understand what this is doing here. Starts taking notes. I sure hope assigns homework for Sunday. I can start giving you homework. I would say the homework would be just draw a bunch of shapes, man. Start doing that, lay out that perspective thing like this. Do this, and just start drawing shapes, and keep doing, that over and over again. Draw several, fill up a page with all this stuff. Go to another page and keep doing it. I mean, literally, I had a whole term on this stuff. But what I figured out later on is that it's breaking it down into the simplest forms. So if you start to put wheels on this stuff, you can start to carve out a car, Now again, this is in its simplest form too, so the car is going to look a bit strange. But as your brain starts to comprehend these simple shapes broken down, that's how you start to draw the more complicated shapes, because your brain can process that. Now, some of the techniques that Scott Robertson shows is that, actually you want a center line in here. So I know that that's split right down the middle. Now, some of the stuff he shows, you can actually draw, you could draw a plane, like the bottom plane. So pretend this might be the shadow. So, and basically what I'm drawing on is this plane down here, the very bottom plane. So then, since I got my center line there, actually I think my center line's slightly curving here. Yeah, it is a little bit. So then I have my center line, and now I can draw across, and I can figure out. So I have this, say this is a waist, inside here. So it's like pushing in, it's dipping in. I can do that same thing on the other side now. Actually, I feel like that is my center line. Let me figure out something here. Yeah, my box is slightly large, actually. So you can get really scientific and start to figure out the whole shape of your car and where all your stuff needs to land. Now I'm showing you kind of an abbreviated version. Now you could really go through what Scott Robertson does. He actually breaks this up into boxes, and you can send you can put like guidelines over, and you can figure out basically almost mathematically exactly how this perspective works. So see right here, I can tell my wheel is out of perspective right here. So then I can just bring that stuff up like that. I'm just going to block it out. I'm going to keep it super simple. I'm not going to start to carve it up into a crazy car shape. I'm just showing you how your brain can start to work after you've done it. I mean, this is basically what my brain is doing when I'm making designs. It's basically taking a knife and carving it up, and then the next plane it's carving it up and then carving it up. So really, this is the early basics of, a car design. There's a lot more to it after this, but so then from here, if you really wanted to, you could start to add fenders. This is a horrible looking car, but I think I'm trying to keep it fairly simple so that you kind of understand the concepts behind it. Center line. Yeah, you need to have your center line. Well, I guess you don't have to have it symmetrical, but you don't really have a center line down something that's asymmetrical. I guess you would have I guess that's not entirely true. I guess you could have a center line down it and the design could be different on opposite sides. But I think for learning's sake, you kind of want to keep that in mind, I think. I don't think you want to start doing asymmetrical stuff right off the bat, And even if you think about it, most nature is symmetrical for the most part. So that's why our brains, I think, can comprehend that stuff. So, yeah, it's slicing the cube, man. So then from here, really, this is, you could start slicing shapes off here, creating chamfers. This is how you start to break down a design. So then when you start creating all these slices, your brain can start to figure out how to shade this stuff and how reflections work and all that stuff. But really, it is a lot of repetition, and your brain gets used to it, and you start to figure out this stuff. But, when I was showing all this stuff, it really opened up, just a major breakthrough for me when I found out all this stuff. That's how you could start to get form to things, So, do you have any other questions on that? Does that help a little bit, maybe? So then I can take it from there, and I can start to get really crazy with stuff. Ugh, all my pencils are small. Let me get a new pencil here. Yeah, I think learning perspective and training yourself to draw, and what I mean by that is getting good control over your line quality and stuff. If you get those two things, you can make some pretty big leaps after that. And that's the nice thing, is when you break all that stuff down into like chunks that you can bite, it makes it a little bit easier for the learning process. And I really think this is the way I actually learned in school. I mean, it was very, very basic in the beginning. But by the time we graduated, you could, I mean, I was designing cars, so, you know, you could figure out, you know, very, very complicated surface things by then. So then once I get to that point, then I can really start to, I mean, this, I'm just showing you how my brain works now. But I always lay down my ground plane when I draw vehicles or cars, you know, even if it's spaceships, I always draw guidelines first. And you'll see, you know, you'll see other guys do this too. Feng Zhu, Scott Robertson, any of those guys are going to lay down guidelines for themselves. But even when I start to lay out my my objects, I use very, very basic shapes, and then I start to carve them up from there, you know? I don't really know what to draw right now, but I'm trying to get my brain going here. This is pretty much how I started that military hot rod vehicle. Was I just started sketching on a page, and then I start to see something. But I draw planes to start with. Like, and what I mean by that is like flat areas. Hey, thanks for the follow, RBK2. Let me think here. This is when I need sometimes some inspiration. And sometimes as I've drawn stuff, you can, you know, adjust some of the perspective. Keep all your guideline or all your lines fairly light in the beginning, you know. Then you can start to come back and fill it in. Oh man, it's 11:16. Shoot. Didn't realize that. Let me do this. I'm just gonna look at some past stuff that I've done just to get some ideas. Because I'm just trying to freestyle this thing, and I gotta have a direction here, I guess you could say. I'm gonna kind of steal off one of my own and my own drawings. I always liked the proportion of this ship. I always thought it was kind of cool. Now I will say, like, you know, when it comes to design and styling, that tends to become a personal style, and I tend to draw a lot from. I'm a huge World War II fan. I look at a lot of bombers. I look at a lot of fighters. I love everything that's World War II related. I love tanks. You know, so a lot of that stuff plays a huge inspiration into my styling and stuff. You know, even when I'm drawing spaceships, I'll pull designs, you know, design cues from old airplanes and things like that. You know, because I heard Feng Zhu do this or talk about this once, and he talked about how you don't want to make something too weird or crazy. And he was mostly talking about, like, when you're doing design, especially for video games and even movies, you know, people have to relate somehow. And when we, as a designer, we have to create things that are new, but they're still somewhat familiar. And, you know, by looking at planes, I end up injecting that same styling back into my stuff. You know, people understand what flies and why, and, you know, that they have wings. You know, I heard some designers talk about you know, spaceships, they shouldn't have wings, you know, like, that's stupid. And to a certain degree, I understand the science behind that, but to the everyday Joe Schmo that's not thinking about that spaceship, you know, you don't need wings in space. That you understand that if you add wings and it's got an interesting shape, that flies. You know, I know that that's a flying ship now, you know. And I think you have to use those design cues when you're designing stuff for video games and movies and things like that. But, and just kind of going back to the whole perspective thing, you know, I'm showing you, now I'm getting really, really complicated with my shapes. But I'm able to do this now because of learning all those fundamentals, all the fundamental stuff. You can't get here without going there, basically, is what I'm saying. And you talk to any good designer, and they've got this down pat now, you know, and they're able to think this way because they draw so much, and through tons of repetition. You know, I don't have chat up, but let me look here. Hey, James, what's up, man? I got my chat up on my phone, though, so I'll take a look at that real quick, guys. Just talking about perspective and a bunch of the fundamentals and stuff. All right, see you later, JD. I don't know if I missed you a long time ago, but peace out, bro. Yeah, the Batwing, maybe. The Perco Russo planes are cool. What is that? What's the Perco Russo planes? Is that the stuff that they did called Speedbirds or something like that? Always like these. The other thing too, I've also looked at a lot of planes from the 60s too. They had a lot of weird experimental stuff that was pretty strange. But once I get my guidelines down, you know, I've got this perspective laid out for me right here, you know, for the most part. And then as I get out here, then my perspective lines are going to start doing this. And then as I go this way, they're going to start going this way. And like I said, this is all, you know, it's from years of drawing. I've been at this for probably, I mean, even before I graduated college, you know, I'd been drawing. So it's but I got really good in college, I will say that. That's when I kind of exploded and got a lot better at figuring out stuff. Now this is one of the more complicated things that you got to figure out. Okay, so I have these wings right here. So from the front view, they're doing this, right? And then this wing is coming down like this. So then the cockpit is like this. So now I've got to figure out this wing and these two wings. So what does that look like on the other side here? Because this one, you're almost just looking at the blade, right? So you're like, dang, dude, you know, this was probably, I promise you not, that drawing airplanes is so difficult to get the wings right. We tend to want to draw things flat, but they have a lot of the planes go up, and they also tip back at that. So they got just crazy perspective stuff going on. So what I can do now is, since I've got my center line here, I can drop that if I need to, but I can draw over to the other side now and figure out where these wings hit. So let's say the corner of the wing's about right there, and then the top of the wing is right there. So I can draw within this perspective grid to the other side. Now again, I'm doing this sketch because I'm doing it based on experience, but I'm also doing it with the science as well that's involved with figuring out your perspective. The other thing I can figure out too is this wing, where does that dip down? That comes out maybe about right there, I think it looks like. Well, here's the center line. It's gonna probably be moved over a little bit. So there's where that's where the wing would probably end here for this one. So I've got that tipping down. So now I can get the bottom of this wing from right here. So we're saying about right there, I think, because it's got space in between here. So that goes down, and so this corner is about right there. Now you can actually, so if I draw this wing going down like that, and I bring my center line down, so that's the center of this V right here. So then I can bring the V up on the other side and figure out my wing. So actually I'm off a little bit. I probably need to go about right there. And this one probably, let's see, I can do the same thing with this. Bring my center line up. So actually, see, I'm off a little bit on that wing edge right there. So if I bring that over, so I need to bring that down steeper right there. Hey, Monsieur, how you doing, man? Hey, and Sid's here. Hey, Sid. Man, that's cool. Thanks for stopping by. Hey, there's a few really good artists here. Silver's great. You guys can follow each other. Silver's here. Sid Weiler, she is an Adobe artist, and her illustration work is phenomenal. So check her out. It's really cool. JD Scribbles, he does concept art. James does a bunch of vehicle stuff as well. So hey, thanks for stopping by though. That's awesome. Was that thunder? No, I don't have thunder here. I wonder if I hit my table maybe. Oh, yeah, Sid. You know, I mean, I don't want to like come into somebody else's chat and say, "Hey, I stream. Check me out." I figure that eventually somebody will, discover me. Right now, I basically what I was working on. You can see below. That's I'm redoing a whole set of playing cards. I'm doing hot rod themed playing cards, and that's what I was working on earlier. And now I'm just basically going over perspective stuff. And I should have gotten off at 11, and I didn't. So, anyways, I'm gonna finish this. And if you guys have any questions, come in or just chime in, and I'll answer it. And Boy Fruit, hey, what's up, man? Boy Fruit's in the house too. He's got some phenomenal artwork. It's so cool to see everybody in here. Thanks for all the support, guys. I appreciate you popping in. So anyways, I was figuring out the perspective of this wing. I think you heard me talking about that. So that goes down like that, and then this here is actually going to get a kickback on it. Now that's something you can't see back here. But what you can do is you can figure it out from here. So I'm hitting about right there. So now I can figure out where this one is too. This one's probably, so this one's kicking out like this. And same thing, I'll just carry over my line. Now this one's going to get, well, let's see, because I have this kicking forward too, so you're got to compensate for that. Actually, to be honest with you, what I'd probably end up doing is kicking that back, because I feel like that's going to be it's going to look too much like this right now. So how did you find me, Sid? How did you know I was doing this? Hunt down who streams. I know that's totally true. Oh, somebody just... Oh, thanks for the host, Sid. I appreciate that. Oh, thanks, Monsieur. It's not necessarily a bat plane. It's just a ship. I kind of was basing it on one of my old designs. I was just talking about perspective and stuff like that, and just kind of giving some guidelines. I'll show you where I started from, and then we ended up on this whole thing. So what I was talking about, I'll just back up a little bit. We were talking about perspective. Oh, you recognize the name. Right on. Oh, you were skimming for creatives. Right on, and you saw me on. Awesome. So I was talking about perspective and how in school I spent a whole term on just drawing shapes like this. And so you go from here, drawing a bunch of shapes, and then in that course too, we had to learn how to shade them, how to plot your shadows, and I didn't even talk about plotting shadows yet because that's just throwing in more. So I went from this, and then how you get from just drawing cubes, you start to go to this, and this is just how you can lay down some guidelines and start to chop up a cube, and how our brain starts to process this stuff so you can shade it and things like that. And then I was saying from here, my brain now thinks like this, where I can really break up surfaces and stuff like that to really think this stuff out. So I was just using a spaceship as an example for getting a more complicated surfacing arrangement going on. So now I'll go back and basically start to darken in some of this stuff. And then, you know, you can get real crazy with it. I could add more engines. Actually, I think that tail wing is probably a little too typical, so I'll just probably leave it for now. Oh my gosh, Sam's in here too now. Right on, guys. How you doing tonight, Sam? I was just going through a bunch of perspective stuff. I just got all the cool people in my stream. I had the Phoebe earlier. I got Sid, Boy Fruit, James Mundy, JD Scribbles. Now Sam. So now from here, once you have a basic shape going, you can start to really add some cut lines and engines. And actually what I'll probably do, I might just drop this down. So it's got this like kind of center fuselage going. Sometimes I'll even draw through the wing to give myself to figure out what all that's doing there. Then from here you could actually... I love to draw wings off of stuff. It's just cool. So to kind of give that a center look there, then I can draw my other wing on the other side. Oh, thanks, Sam. Yeah, hey, Monsieur, everyone is here. Yeah, and Prince of Motley is here too. That guy is truly my sidekick, man. He is by far one of the most supportive dudes, man, I think I've seen around. I love having you in my streams, Prince. I really do, man. It's so cool. You bring the comic relief. I know when I'm in other people's streams, maybe not all of us see that, but Prince and I get some good jokes going on sometimes that just crack me up. Nothing mean. I don't want people to think that we're making fun of them. Just we can be very sarcastic at times, I think. So now this starts to become the fun part when you start to detail all this up. Is yeah, Shoe Thief, everyone is here, man. Tell me about it. It's awesome. It's great. Everyone shows up right when I want to end my stream, right? I should probably call it a night, guys. I will probably end up just finishing this tomorrow. Man, Sam, I had originally planned on working on my my posse challenge thing, but I didn't. I ended up working on my card deck for so long that I was like, I wasn't gonna jump into digital. I just stayed traditional tonight. Oh man, this is one of those things. See, I'm starting to go now. I'm starting to think. Oh, Silver. All right, dude. I'll do it, Silver. I don't have a lot.